You're on mute, Mayor.
Am I on now? Sorry about that. So tonight's agenda looks pretty straightforward and looks like we could have an abbreviated meeting if we stick to our topics and get through them efficiently. I'd like to welcome everyone to City Council meeting on this 27th day of April, 2021. We have no one in attendance in our audience. Hopefully we've got a few people watching online. We'd like to start the meeting tonight with a roll call, beginning with Greg.
Greg Gordon, present.
Carla.
Carla Merrill, present.
Jason.
Jason Thielen, present.
And Lon.
Lon Lot, present.
Troy Stout, present. Excused tonight is Jessica Smewen, who is unable to find bandwidth to get on a meeting. She's remote. She may be joining us later in some of our discussions if she can find a good spot. To start our meeting, we'd like to start with a word of prayer offered by Greg Gordon.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are so grateful that we could meet here this evening together. We are grateful for the democratic and representative process that we are privileged to enjoy and serve in. We ask a special blessing on all of those who are afflicted by the virus, that they may be blessed in any way that they need. Please bless our families and all of the families in this lovely city and all of their challenges. We pray for thy guidance and support in all that we do, that we may be wise and helpful and productive in serving the best interests of this city and area. We pray for thy help and guidance and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Greg. I've asked Chief William to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise. Repeat the pledge with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. For those of you who don't know, and those of you viewing in our audience, we've had a change in leadership in our fire department over the past week. And Chief William has stepped in to serve as interim fire chief, as well as maintaining his responsibilities as our police chief. So thank you very much for doing that, Brian. I'd like to publicly acknowledge the extra effort it takes to fill both those roles, and nobody more qualified than yourself. Thank you for the work that you do. We will, I guess we're scheduled to do a work session. I'm still not used to going into work session before we hear public input. But is there anything that we need to cover tonight during our work session on the general plan?
Yeah.
Do you have anything prepared?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yep, we do have some stuff kind of to talk about. So
Okay, what I'd like to do is, again, sticking to efficiency as much as possible is get through the points as quickly as we can. If there's discussion that needs to happen, let's keep that in refined and organized way. Yes, Bonnie. Oh, there. Is it just as a matter of public comment? Okay.
yeah, and we may have one of our representatives from one of these agenda items coming closer to 7. I told them that. So
Okay, so what I'd like to do in the future, and I haven't talked to anybody about this, but if we could remove the time frame from the work session, remove that, because then it leaves it open. If we have a short work session, we can move right into the rest of our meeting. There's really no reason we have to wait until 7 to start getting into the meat of our meeting. Since we're starting earlier, that was kind of the objective, is to be able to start earlier and get through earlier. So in the future, let's try to do that. And then if we do have somebody that wants to come and we've already passed that point in our meeting, we'll pause and let them give that input. Happy to do that. All right, so with that, Austin, do you want to address the general plan?
yeah, let me go ahead and pull this up. So I mean, like you said, I mean, we don't have a ton to talk about on this item. We've already talked about it before, and so I just wanted, it's really kind of a follow-up meeting, and so going along with the spirit of, if we can be efficient, there's no need to spend an hour on this topic. So
Yeah.
but So if you all remember in our previous work sessions, we looked at this, we reviewed some of the numbers here, and then at the very end, we got down to the section that talks about our policies. And so the policies are based on a menu list that we were provided by the state, and we had to adopt at least 3 items. And as you notice here, we have 4 items. And so I went back and kind of researched that. How did this happen? Why do we have 4 items and not 3? And so there was a previous draft of this that had one of these items in it, and it just kind of stayed in the draft throughout the entire process and never was eliminated. So we added 3 from the list and kept the one that was already in the draft. So that's kind of where we're at. I spoke with the representative from DWS, that's the entity that we report to at the end of every year. And so they said, if the city feels like it wants to focus in on 3 instead of, being broader with 4 and really focus in on those 3, that's something that can be done. You just need to make sure that in your end of year report that's reported. And, just kind of a brief explanation why, and if you decide to update the element that gets in the report.
Okay.
So these are the 4. Again, we only have to have 3, so I don't know if how we want to tackle that conversation, but
We'll start with those who are joining us remotely. Carla and Jason, do you have any input specifically regarding any one of the 4 issues that you would want to eliminate or amend?
I'll go first.
Okay.
If I could amend one on those, I would amend 1.2, allow senior housing units to be built in a more dense clusters to reduce costs of living. I would just propose there that we would, because we're trying to do that right now, but it's in the business commercial zone. So allow senior housing units to be built in the business commercial zone in more dense clusters to reduce the cost of living. The reason why I bring that up is that's kind of why we did that, and it is in a particular zone in the city. What I don't want this policy to be is used later on for the purpose of saying, well, we need to put senior housing high density units on the outer edges of our city, as opposed to how we have it set up in the business commercial.
Okay, and that's a good point. Austin, do we not have, it seems like we had an overlay that we used for senior housing that was condensed more down into the kind of that more of the core area of the city. Has that changed at all?
No. So it's in an overlay, like you said, which means all the overlays that we have are for the business commercial zone specifically. Now, to Jason's point, we don't specifically say that in our general plan anywhere that it will only be in that zone, but it is implied that it would only be in the business commercial zone because it is an overlay.
So maybe, Jason, are you saying that we remove the implication and specify more that it's in the commercial zone?
Yeah, exactly.
So the wording you could do, you could just, instead of saying that, you could just say in dense clusters within the senior citizen overlays.
Yeah.
So if you just put that specific wording in there to prevent other sections of the city wanting to enact this policy or use this policy to have more dense population or dense clusters. So yeah, I agree with Jason. I would like more specific wording on that.
Okay. So do we still want to keep it though as one of our objectives, one of our policies, or does it need to fold kind of into the general plan and just have that indication in there that it is part of the senior overlay?
No, I think you can do it part of the plan. That way we're following, that way then, we're within what the state is requiring us to do.
I agree with that, yeah.
Okay. Lon, do you have any thoughts?
I see no reason why not to keep those four in there.
So you're in favor of keeping all four? Okay. Greg?
Yeah, I think, agree on the point on 1, 2. I think it sounds like we only need 3 and we have 4. I think on 1, 4, we may, I'd favor removing that one since we only need 3. And we're, behind on doing that, but we have it here ready if the state, say, in a few months, or, comes back and says, now you need 4, we could have this one available. But yeah, I think 1, 2 is a good one because I think there's just an increasing demand for senior housing, seemingly with our demographic in city.
Okay. I mean, the senior living, when they proposed initially, the new development that's going in over near the roundabout, wasn't that proposed as more senior living, more affordable housing? I mean, it seemed like that was kind of the
Yeah.
message they were trying to deliver.
It was kind of part of their proposal. They were essentially made it, sound like this is going to be some of the most affordable housing that you're going to be able
Yeah.
to find in Alpine City.
And I've been looking around and I've seen them advertising at the very lowest priced one they have is like $840,000. So it does seem to be a bit of a contradiction, but do what we can. I think that the high density senior housing is pretty much more what's going to get us there. It's not the single dwelling that these are, the townhome style.
And, that's not been lost on some residents here. I've had several people say, these were, this was supposed to be some sort of, high density, low income, and look at the price and, much less dense housing, right, is much lower cost.
Yeah.
In many cases.
Yeah, and then per square foot, they're getting quite a bit of per square foot. Regardless, okay, what else do we need to tackle on that topic, Austin?
Well, so I guess if we, I guess we have item 1.4, and we kind of talked about a little bit. So I think it's West Valley has a program that they use. I don't know if we want to do something similar or if we opt to keep 1.4 in there for now, but they do have a housing incentive. Let me see if I can find it here.
So, and are there people actually taking advantage of that incentive? Because I wonder here, as I was thinking through this, if we provide an incentive, is it enough still to create an affordable situation?
Right.
Or is it really more just dressing on the wall saying we have it?
Yeah, I mean, what kind of incentive do you have to offer to make it an option, I don't know.
And of course, West Valley City has a much easier time in some of these parameters, but we do have some city employees and other public safety people that live in the city, fortunately. But I just wonder if we put this in, how much does that tilt the decision anyway versus living in American Fork or Lehigh or something?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So Austin, can we take out 1.4 for now and then have you prepare a sample program? And then do we also have a number? Like how many are we going to provide in a given calendar year?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't pinned down an exact number, but the thought process is there would be a limited number available in the year, and candidates could apply for that, and then however many are permitted per year would be there. That number would be selected out of the who have the most qualification. We'd have a criteria. Who has the greatest need and who has and we'd figure out some kind of a way to, I don't know,
Become somewhat subjective, which is a
there's
little
gonna be some
dangerous.
subjectivity, absolutely. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I think we need to start somewhere though, like Carla's asking though, we ought to have a dollar amount, see what the formula would be as far as your West Valley's plan. If you were to develop a plan based on that, what would the dollar cost be per year? We would need to see something like that, I think, to even make a decision on how many you would provide. If it was right off in my mind, it's seeming to be quite a big chunk in the budget that we would have to do, and so we'd need to see that. I agree with what Carla's saying. We need to see something like that.
And visually, I think it looks really good. It sounds really good. I love the idea, the concept, but I have a couple of questions about the reality of it. For example, item 2 with the West Valley option, officers can apply to receive $165 a month for 5 years for living in West Valley City, and it's renewable every 5 years. Well, if you have a department of say 25 officers, and 2 officers get that advantage, and they use it for the 5 years, and then 5 years comes up and there's 2 different officers that want to use it, which they should be entitled to do. The 2 officers who are coming off the program now have a bump in the cost of living, and does that push them out of the force or just out of the city?
Yeah.
So I guess I start wondering about the sustainability of the incentive.
Well, there's a few things on it, right? I mean, would this apply just to police? Could it apply to fire? What about other employees? And this offers 1 or 2 incentives, or it can be both, right? And how does that budget and is there a ratio, a number there? What the other question is, what if someone already lives here? Right? Can they apply to this and get this, or is this only for new movements? Right. So,
yeah. Chief, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, what if, let's say we replicated the West Valley option, $165 a month? Does that help your officers live closer in, or does it create much of a benefit?
That's a tough question to answer. And, it depends on each individual circumstance or situation. I don't know that if under $165 would entice individuals to move to Alpine. I think if you want to do comparable, I remember when West Valley implemented this, and I think it was 3, 4, 5 years ago, they were having, there were a lot of things that played into the council making this decision. One of them being that they were having a hard time recruiting officers to begin with, because there was a stigma around working for West Valley at the time. That's since changed with leadership. And but I think we're looking at property values versus what it's going to cost to live in West Valley versus costing to live in Alpine. I mean, there's a difference there, and we all know that. So you'd have to do a comparable. What is $165 stipend for living in West Valley? What is that comparing to 100? What is that number to live in Alpine? I don't know. There's some math that would need to be done there, and I'm not sure what type of incentive that would bring. But I think that there's some good points. Councilman Gordon brought up what. I just think it's worth a discussion, but I'm not sure how many would take advantage of it. And then if they're eligible for, if you're only allowing X amount, who decides who gets what? So, good conversation.
Yeah. So Carla, I think, did I understand you correctly that you'd like to see it taken off and maybe thought through a little bit more before it becomes one of our key objectives?
Yes, and until we really need to do that, once they, if the state comes out and says we need to come up with 4 policies, great, we'll have this one ready. I think it's definitely worth looking into, but from after hearing, what Brian had to say, But although maybe it is a great thing to have and no one will use it. So that's great. It's not going to cost us anything. We'll still be complicit with this, we'll still be in compliance with what the state's requiring us. So I don't know, you can take it, any which way. But honestly, I think we should just stay with the first 3 policies, remove the 4th. I would say definitely research that a little bit more and have that kind of build out a little bit more and have it be more definitive and have a little bit more details, see what that would actually look like for our city implemented. But I don't think it should be one of our policies at this point.
Okay, keep it in the wings.
Correct.
Anybody else feel differently? I'm kind of in that same line of thought. So Austin, I think that's where we'd like to end.
Okay.
We're gonna do that. Okay. Anything else that you'd like to address on the general plan? Oh, sorry.
I do have some questions on it a little. So Austin, the current and future projections portion of this
Yeah.
on that page, also on the existing, is that going to be part of the document as well? The chart?
Those charts, yes, it will be part of our general plan. Yeah.
So when do we see the current census coming out? Because it talks about census, the older census.
I know that we're starting to see some of the numbers. I've seen, publications on things that are we're starting to see.
Okay, so my
results.
question is, as far as finalizing this document, then do we want to go through and finalize it, and then when the changes finally come in, revise it, or do we? How do you propose we do that? Because if these numbers are part of that document, then they ought to be accurate.
Right.
Yeah, up to date.
Uh-huh.
I think, our ultimate objective is to pass the entire general plan sometime this year. And so I would say we'll make that change to item 1.4, for example, and we would just keep those numbers in when we adopt the general plan. And then if needed, we could go and amend.
Can you have a column that's open that shows 2020 census? Is that
This
what
is
they're going to call it?
2020 census.
2020
Yeah, that would be the
census.
next. Yeah.
That you have that. You have the different surveys, you have the different projection growth rates, or somehow that the numbers that it shows that we have an open there. I just, that's just a thought. I just wanted to have it as accurate as possible, because I think some of those numbers are going to change, I think, based on.
So the data today is 2017, is that the
Right.
one we're
The
using?
most recent data would be 2017.
But you did your last report, it wasn't a couple months ago on the annual schedule?
Yeah.
Okay. So in roughly 9 months, you'd use the 2020 result, I guess.
Yes, we're still a ways out. So it just, I
Okay.
mean, I just hate to hold up the entire general plan.
Yeah, I'm
for that.
not suggesting that.
But
I'm
I
just
guess you're just asking if it can be a living document, basically, to be updated as the
on that
numbers change.
Yeah. item for
so,
sure.
yeah.
I think it's important to reflect the most accurate numbers possible.
I've just been looking at some of our old things in the past, and they were good to have.
Yeah.
When we did the leakage study that one time, we had semi-current stuff, but it was nice to have them look into it and get some more current numbers
Right.
as it pertains to real growth here. So.
Jason, did you have anything else you wanted to bring up? Okay. Greg?
No, thanks.
Carla?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, so just one last thing. I just want to I just put together kind of a tentative outline timeline for the rest of the year for this. So just so we can see that there's a light at the end of this tunnel of the general plan. So kind of what we're looking at is next month, we would look at parks, recreation, and trails and open space element. And in June, we could look at, so Lambert Park has its own element. So that's something we could look at in June. The economic development section is a very small section. As you know, we don't have much economic development going on in Alpine. So that's something that could even be combined with another discussion. And then in August, we have our master plan. So the master plans include things like the trail master plan, the Moyle Park. We probably don't, that's probably not going to be a long discussion. So maybe that would be the one to combine with the economic, unless, you know, we had something specific we wanted to get at that. But I just thought it would be good to have a good overview of all of our master plans that we have that are related to the general plan.
Well, I think the discussion about the economic development piece would have to include any prospective thoughts on the Bangerter property that we toured last year.
Yeah.
If there's any development of thought on that, whether that's remains residential, becomes part of the commercial, et cetera. So that would be, because that's really the last opportunity we have to build any kind of an economic development area, to develop an economic segment to add to what we have.
So what you're saying, maybe would take a little bit longer discussion than just a real quick.
Yeah.
read.
Yeah, because I think that we really need to take a look at that
Yeah.
and decide which direction we're going to go with it.
As well as the Burgess and maybe the Clark property, or the what's the other one there? That other farm there.
Yeah, it is Burgess. Yeah.
Burgess and that neighboring one there by the
Yeah.
end of it. Yeah.
So that might turn into a little bigger discussion.
Yeah,
Based
I
on
mean, this is a tentative schedule, so I mean, we can morph it and adapt it as need
Yeah.
be. So.
Yep.
But yeah, I think we can definitely get this thing, you know, it'd be nice if we could get that all taken care of, and, you know, we can have that adopted easily by the end of the year, I think. So we're right on track, and we'll just keep tackling it month at a
Okay.
time.
Okay, very good. With that, is there anything else there that we can go into our public comment and beyond? In fact, unless there are any online comments, we'll just skip past that until the individual you mentioned comes in. Do you have anything online?
We haven't received any emails, and I believe so, and I don't think we've received anything on YouTube.
Okay,
So
so when that individual comes in, we'll pause. Are you here to make any kind of public comment?
No.
Okay,
she's here for one of the agenda items.
okay, good. All right. Okay. Do we have, I know Shane's not here. Do we have any other reports and presentations? Usually we'll talk about the budget. All right, let's move into action item A, the Cherry Point subdivision. It's a fairly small project. Oh, I'm sorry, did I? Yeah, I missed this consent calendar. Thanks, Lon. Yeah, we'll go back to that. The consent calendar. Greg, do you have anything on that?
On the consent calendar, no, I didn't have any
Okay,
questions coming.
Jason or Carla?
Nope.
Okay,
No.
all right, Lon.
And I just made some corrections to the minutes, some grammatical and word changes,
Okay,
keyword changes. But the CUP filter station then, are we going to, is that going to be put in then? As soon as we,
yeah, I believe we've done everything we need to approve that moving forward. Shane's not on with us yet, is he?
No, he's not.
Okay,
I was gonna give him a heads up when we're probably about 15 minutes away from that last.
From the
item
structure.
there. So
okay. So do you know anything to the contrary, Austin? That pump station should be full speed ahead, right? I think that's what Shane told us in the last meeting.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's full steam ahead on that, so.
Okay. All right, good.
Mayor,
So
I'll
we'll
make a
entertain a
motion.
motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent calendar with minor changes to the minutes that I made.
Have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Lon to approve, seconded by Greg Gordon. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. Now we'll move to action item A. Cherry Point subdivision. Are you ready for that one, Austin?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about this. So this is a concept plan. It's a 2-lot subdivision. This is located on 1528 North Grove Drive. If any of you are familiar with the 90-degree bend in Grove Drive, that's the property that we're talking about on the east side of that corner there. It is located in the CR 40,000 zone. Total acreage for the properties is 6 acres. And the project would be 2 lots ranging, so there would be a smaller lot at 0.92 acres, which is basically 40,000 square feet. And then the larger remaining property would be 4.9 acres. This is land this includes the home that Pete Christensen originally lived in. I'm not sure if he still resides there, but Josh James now owns that land. And so this would create a new lot where Pete Christensen could build a new home. And so, Pete and Josh James are working closely together on that to make that happen. As far as the plan is concerned, this did go to Planning Commission last week. They held a public hearing on it and they did approve this plan. They didn't see any issues with it. It's here for informational purposes primarily, or if the city council sees a need to provide feedback to the developer for their preliminary and final plats that are still yet to come. Some of the things that we should just briefly mention is, we've looked at this, it meets all of our use, width, and area requirements for the zone. It's also compatible with our general plan. The streets and the layout also match our general plan and our ordinances. Right
So
of way.
I've got a question regarding that plot and the 90-degree angle. Are they going to be working with, do they have to do anything as far as making that intersection a little bit safer? And are they doing sidewalks, curb and gutter, all of that? Or because I couldn't tell by looking at it if it was just going to the street or if they were actually required to have curb and gutter along that.
So, yeah, so eventually, when it's all said and done and all of this gets developed, there would be curb and gutter along the entire, both sides of Grove. So the north-south as well as the east-west portion of Grove there. So that would be part of the development of this. Right, mentioning that, there are some other developments south of this, also along Grove Drive, that don't have curb and gutter at the present time. So ideally, the city would want to do all of that at one time so that we wouldn't have to shut down Grove Drive to get that work done. So whenever the other south portions come in, as well as this one, the ideal scenario would be to do that all at once and put curb and gutter along the whole thing.
Okay, so with the curb and gutter, are we going to have the required 50, is it 51 feet that we're looking at for Grove Drive?
It says
So-
54 feet.
Oh,
is
54
what
feet, is that,
is in the document there.
okay, so will we still have the 54 feet with the curb and gutter? So you guys are looking at all of that, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So essentially they would, part of this would be as they progress through this, they would dedicate a 54-foot right of way to the city. And then when they do that, they would also provide funding for that curb and gutter so that the city could put that in at the
Okay.
right time.
So
Okay,
that funding will be
thank you.
upfront, held in escrow then?
Correct.
Is it 54 feet on both sides of both roads, or east, west, and north, south?
Yes, that's our city standard for this type of street.
And what is the plan for any sidewalks along this area? Do you know?
I do not know that. I'm not sure what our plans are for that. I know that we don't really have it in that area on that side of the road. So I don't know if there, I know for sure we will be doing curb and gutter, but I'm not sure about sidewalks.
So, and does that leave then a large enough shoulder for like a, you know, bike usage? I think we get a lot of cyclists using that road.
Yeah, so with the 54-foot right of way, it does provide enough of a shoulder that you could have pedestrian or bicycle activity on the shoulders.
Well, so I guess it's a question there, you know, do we want sidewalks along that section? You're right, because it's quite a ways, you know, both directions beyond this. It doesn't have sidewalk, right? Is that the plan to put in sidewalk in this area or not, right? We shouldn't worry about it.
Yeah.
I would think we would want sidewalks. It's safer.
But you're talking about all the way down to the corner where the alpacas are and that intersection of Alpine Boulevard.
Right.
and Grove. I mean, that is a pretty good stretch, but it would be ideal to have a safe pathway there. I think it'd be nice to have a sidewalk and a bicycle path in addition to the street. That's really what we need, because there's a lot of traffic, a lot of cycling traffic that goes up that way, like you said, Greg.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of foot traffic could go up there if it's walker friendly.
Just because it goes up to that trailhead as well as all the bike parks and lanes or trails and so on. I've seen people walking it and it's a little tight. I've done it as well, right? And you're kind of pushing against traffic on the side.
Yeah.
But you know, but this is just one lot among several. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the cove is kind of that way too, right? So, you know, and that's already built out and, you know, something to think about though, yeah. To get to that trailhead that you're talking about.
I do think about the cove because all the way up Grove, as you continue up toward the rodeo grounds, I guess that's still Grove after it makes the right. That becomes Cove. Is that still Grove?
I think it's still Grove, yeah.
Yeah. So the masked man in the audience says yes.
Yes,
It
that man in the audience would know. He drives it every day, so.
Yeah, so, but there is no sidewalk going up that, and the road is actually wide enough that we could put sidewalk in there at some point. That should be part of our master plan, is to eventually have a sidewalk that goes all the way up. Okay.
One other, and is that going to be a four-way there? Is that the future traffic plan?
That is the plan, yes.
Okay.
How's it for, because it's private
Well,
property.
not
it's a
four-way, I'm
three-
sorry,
it'd
it'd be
have
a
to
three.
three-way.
It's a three-way.
With the
It's a
driveway
three-way,
nearby.
not a
Yeah,
four-way.
the driveway is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other thoughts on
Well,
this
there is,
subdivision?
I visited with Jed on this and he explained some of this to me, but there is, Carla, there is a little bit of a difference in that right of way width as it pertains to the north-south Grove Drive portion versus the east-west Drive, Grove Drive portion. But according to what Jed was saying, yet concept, this is what is the design is. They don't have to do anything with that width until they actually come in with that particular lot build. So that corner may not see any reconstruction until Mr. Christensen on that corner demos the house and demolishes the house and builds something new there, is my guess as to what's gonna happen.
So what is the right of way on the east-west of Grove?
So that is.
It's more than 54, isn't it?
No, it is only 41, it looks
Oh,
like.
it is.
On
Okay.
this plan, 30, well, that they, I remember when we were originally talking about the rigid Alpine deal, the county parcel map didn't even have a right of way. That his property went to the center of the street. And if you recall, we had a difficult time with that corner because it went to the center of the street. And now with this subdividing, we have the ability to require the right of way that is needed,
That we didn't,
Okay.
that we didn't have before.
yeah,
Okay.
that's been the sticking point for a long time.
So this is a good, to me, this is a good
Yeah.
thing that this is
Yeah.
happening so soon.
Right. No, and I was glad to see. I just wanted to make sure that we were taking advantage of that opportunity and making sure
Yeah.
that we had, I just wasn't understanding all the
So,
numbers.
so that corner is a unique one as well because they're of the Russin property there. We have to do a little shift because if you see on the plan there, Grove Drives goes up and shifts over because we would be in Russin's front door if we pushed it over to the west. So on the plan, it shows that shift further into the Christensen property versus having a straight shot from Grove Drive up right through Russin's property into that corner, into that intersection.
Okay.
Yeah, I was surprised to see this come up this soon. Okay, if there's no more discussion, I'd be prepared to entertain a motion.
Do we need to have a motion on that? It's just a concept plan, right?
Yeah,
we
it's a
approve.
concept, so it's already been approved. We don't need a motion, but
Yeah, it's
I
just,
thought I read in the bylaws that it has to go before the city council. I thought we had to make a motion on it, but I guess not.
I think we just have to review it, which
it's
we
just
did.
for
Okay.
informational purposes and.
Okay, good.
But you are
It's-
able to make comments that the developer could use in
Okay.
later stages.
Yeah, looks like you have that there on the first page there, at the above staff recommendation, it says, if approved by planning commission shall be presented to city council for information
Okay,
and any direction.
okay, good. All right, let's move on to item B, non-conforming porches and stairs.
Sorry, Mayor, can I just say one thing? I didn't.
Sure, Jason.
My only feedback would be the same as it was from Carla and Greg, that I think that we need to figure out the sidewalks on this. And I don't like the idea that they're not presenting sidewalks at all in this plan. So that's the only feedback, if they're looking for some feedback from me as well.
So the way Jed explained it was we get the right of way, and then when it comes to a preliminary, then is when the sidewalks are presented. Then is when we start telling them that's not wide enough, it needs to be joined with a curb and gutter, or there needs to be a park strip, or those kind
Yeah.
of things, I think is when.
And going back 4 or 5 years ago, when this was a topic, there was always the intent to put a curb and gutter
Yeah.
and sidewalks there. So, if that addresses it, if we have the ability to pull back and before we approve a building that we can enforce that, then I think that's where we've always planned on being.
Yeah.
So I guess to Jason's point, put that in the notes that when it comes time for the building to go up, whatever stage that is, that we will then be requiring curb gutter and sidewalk.
And I agree with what you're saying as the right time to do that. When I was listening to Austin explain it, I was a little confused. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
I guess I always assumed it was part of it, but if it didn't state it, it should state it.
So what's Austin's direction then on that?
Part of the approval will be
Yeah.
the expectation that when construction begins, the sidewalks will be required,
Okay.
curb and gutter.
Yeah, we'll make we can add that in. So when they come forward with the preliminary and the
Yeah.
final, that'll be.
Just make sure that's in the
Yeah.
language now,
Yeah.
so there's no surprises later.
We do need to, we do need a focus on also on that future east-west. I know all the Grove in through the Cove and any of the Cove roads have no curb and gutter, and that's sort of the that country aspect that was county before we annexed it in.
Right.
But we need to determine from this corner how far we want to go with that, if we want to go all the way, if it's going to be future along that whole edge, that south edge of that Grove Drive, or where that return of that sidewalk coming north and south goes.
Well, right now, the way it is, or the way it's appears to be developing, is on the west side of the road. As it hits that bend, it would just empty into the new subdivision there, which you're saying going right,
Going right.
going east,
Mhm.
where do we take it from there?
Correct.
Okay.
I think that ought to be part of the, because that lot one is several hundred feet to the east, and is lot one's frontage going to have curb and gutter and sidewalk? And how far is that going to go, or do we have it come around the corner and stop, and then the rest of that Grove Drive be the same? That's got to be part of a discussion that we have, either whether staff has it or our vision of what that road is part of the discussion. I think it ought to be discussed.
Yeah, I know Shane probably knows a lot more on that than I would. So, I mean, he's been with the city for 20 years. So I'm sure there's a plan for that, and
Yeah.
I'll follow up with him and find out what we can on that. So,
Okay,
This needs to look like it was planned.
yeah,
Okay.
all right. Austin, item B.
Okay, item B, non-conforming porches and stairs. So we do have in the audience here.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did we have somebody here who wanted to make a public statement? Come on up to the front. Austin, I apologize for getting you started and interrupting. But come on up. We went through the public, kind of bypassed the public comment because we didn't have anybody here, but you're here, so come on up and please introduce yourself. Please come forward and state your name and address.
Can I take my mask off?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Suzanne Smith. I live at number 15 Paradise Cove, and I just have about 8 items that I want to get some answers to, if I can. Don't
Okay.
expect them all tonight.
Okay.
Um,
Are those
sorry.
mics on?
They should
Can
be.
you hear her?
I
Should be
have
picking her up.
voice. Okay.
3 minutes.
Pardon me?
Yeah, we do have a 3-minute. We do
3
have a
minutes?
3-minute.
You're serious?
We'll give you a little bit more time because you're the only one, but we typically limit it to 3 minutes in the
Okay.
comments.
Are there any legal recourses with trees in a neighbor's yard that is ruining my patio with the roots coming underneath? And this guy has been talked to before, and he says, if you want the trees down, you go ahead and cut them down. But I know they're doing destruction on my property. That's number one.
Ms. Smith, is that within the area, or is it on the west side of that property?
It's on the east side.
Okay, so
It's,
the far east side of that little
yes,
subdivision?
it's right next to my fence line.
Okay, it's not a tree that's part of the subdivision?
No, it's
Okay,
his
okay.
trees,
I
and
just wanted,
there's like 8
Okay.
or 9 trees, and they're big cottonwoods, and they're
Okay.
sending roots underneath. Okay.
Okay.
I have a special interest in Peterson Park. It's family property years ago, and I appreciate the city working with me on the benches that we've put in there. I just would like a little more detailed consideration of that park from the city. There's an old building there that the kids gather in and graffiti, and right now it's very nasty. They need to do something about that building. Kids have gone over there now and have hung swings from the trees. Somebody's gonna get hurt. And yeah, we just need to have special attention there. The bridge that is in that park, I've talked to Shane about this, I've talked to Cal about this, and people come from all over the county to have pictures taken in that park, and a lot of old people like me walk through that park. And the bridge needs to be power washed and stained. I talked to a professional painter 2 years ago, and he said it would cost about $1,500. And if we don't do something about that bridge, it's going to rot away. We have neighbors that are bored with COVID and are willing to go over and kind of fine tune that park as far as pruning, cutting off suckers that are growing up around trees, that your landscape people don't take time to do that. I just need permission to do that. About 2 years ago, after my husband died, my family from Texas came and cleaned out that nasty building of all the junk that was in there. And we just need to pay more attention to that park.
Okay. Austin and Bonnie, if you can make a note of that, please, because we.
Another power washing and steaming is on.
It is on.
that.
Do you
The
know what
bridge?
month that's scheduled for?
I don't, but I know that that's on our to-do list.
Okay, good.
Great.
And there's no reason why we couldn't organize a neighborhood park day. We do it for Lambert, we do it for other places to clean it up. And
There's a lot of dead branches down. We had big trees fall over last year and they just got cut up and pushed aside. So that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming to the meeting tonight. It's good to have people coming in.
I'll be back.
Okay. Looking forward to it.
So, Mayor, who has the action item to get back to her regarding her legal recourse?
Well, as far as legal recourse, I guess that's gonna be up to our city attorney. I don't know what to say about that one.
Yeah, and frankly, it sounds like it's a matter between two private citizens. I'm happy to advise her that she could seek other counsel, but
Yeah.
and she might have some legal recourse of trespass, but it's going to be between two private citizens.
Okay.
Is any of that good? Lon, you're familiar with the property?
I am.
Is it, are those routes encroaching on city property at all, sidewalks, things like that?
Well, so if you were to, Austin, scroll over towards the roundabout a little, whoa, right there, stop there. So if you look at, let's see, how do I point with this new contraption?
I don't
Let's
think
see, let
there's
me
a
try
way now.
this.
Okay. And I can touch it then. So this, well, it didn't let me.
I think these are touch
I'm hitting
pads.
the wrong buttons. Okay, let's see. Hold on.
Trees are always a very difficult neighborly thing. It's,
Well, especially when they encroach on your.
okay, are we ready to try this
Let's
again?
try this out.
Okay, that was me. I touched, let me try. Now, how do I, let me do this.
Take us to the spot.
There we go. That property edge, and then you can do that. Okay, this is cool. All right, so that property edge there, right there is where she's talking about. She lives in probably one of these areas here, one of these homes right there. And so that fence line has a bunch of cottonwood trees that are a mess, I'm sure. And so sounds like the neighbor doesn't want to cut them.
So in this case, if they're not encroaching on city property, it is a matter of two neighbors, and so any legal.
Yeah, I'm happy if we want to get her number, I'm happy to speak with her and say, hey, this, this doesn't concern the city, but you might want to speak to another attorney about your private property rights and trespass and things like
Marla,
that.
can you provide that information for Hiram to reach out? Thank you. Okay, good. Okay, let's move back to our action items. Item B. This time for sure, Austin, go ahead and get started on that one.
Okay, all right. Item B. Okay, so let me just get back to the right screen here. Okay, so item B, this is a new proposed ordinance. This item has been to city council before. Let's see here, on March 23rd, the motion was made by Jason Thielen, moved to send back to planning commission with the instruction to modify the ordinance to allow for porches and external covered stairs on non-conforming structures to be allowed within the existing setback at the time of the original build and shall be approved by city staff. So that was the motion that was made. This item went back to planning commission on April 20th. The planning commission looked at this. They had a nice discussion on it. They ultimately did make a recommendation to approve this with 5 ayes and 1 nay. There was some language up in the ordinance portion of this, so let me just scroll to it. Kind of in the legal whereas statements that there were some inconsistencies in there, so they wanted some of that cleaned up. But and then down here, they opted to change some of the language. So the word existing, they didn't like that term, and so they decided current was a better phrase. So in item 1, it says the proposed extension or replacement shall be located entirely on the same lot or parcel as the present non-conforming structure and will conform with all current setback and location requirements. So current setbacks, what that refers to as are the current adopted setback standards in our ordinance. So that's what that's referring to. And they thought that was clearer than the term existing. And so that terminology is then continued in the new drafted language down here. And so this language is very closely, tries to put into ordinance what Councilman Thielen asked for. So it says here, this is the language that's been drafted. Porches and external covered stairs shall be permitted within current setbacks so long as they do not extend beyond the original setbacks of the non-conforming structure, i.e. the setbacks from the time of the original build, and may be approved at a staff level. So this would be new language that would be added on to the non-conforming ordinance. This would be the last paragraph, if you will, of that ordinance. And it'd make it so that porches and external covered stairs can be built within current setbacks, but they would still have to abide by the setbacks of whenever that home was built. So if it was built back in the 50s, we'd have to go kind of research that and find out if it still meets those setbacks from that time period. But if it does, then it would be allowed.
So right now, our ordinance is that your structure cannot be any closer than 30 feet from is it the street or the inside of the sidewalk?
It's 30 feet from the front property line, which is 10 feet from back of curb.
So, okay. So that would be the max. That'd be the closest you can get to the street with a porch or an awning of any kind.
Correct.
I can see some challenging situations with that, but I think that's what we all expect, is that 30-foot setback or the 15-foot setback, whatever it is, side or rear or front. Should be for any part of the structure, not just the dwelling part of the structure.
Well, currently though, not covered stairs can be outside of that. So, I
Yeah,
mean, it could be.
but you'd have to because there are some lots that you approach with steps going all the way up the walk.
Yeah, I mean, we look at it, so stairs, non-covered stairs are looked at just kind of the same way that flat work would be. So if you wanted
Yeah.
to put just a concrete pad,
Yeah.
same,
Right.
same deal,
That
because
makes
it doesn't
sense.
obstruct any view or anything.
Okay, discussion. Jason?
I guess just the only thing I would ask if it needs to be more detailed or clarified, when it says porches and external covered stairs, does it matter if it's covered porches versus not covered porches, or have we covered it? Have we covered enough by saying porches? Because in this case, we have in one instance that brought this to, there was a porch, but then it had obviously a beam that goes up for overhang of the roof on top of that porch. Are we missing anything by not having covered porches and the coverings on there at all? Just a general question. Thoughts?
You're saying if there was Jason, are you asking that if there was a porch that wasn't necessarily covered, would it be held to the setback, or?
Yeah, are we by chance, is it by chance the ordinance not clear enough? Because a porch, just a porch patio type thing versus a porch with a covering, would they say, well, the porch would be okay, but because you have the roof line that goes out over it, then it's not okay? Again, I'm a little sick, so I'm not thinking very well, but that's my only question is that on the wording?
Well, I guess, if you think about it, you could have, say, a backyard patio that if it included flat work and steps, but it was not covered, it seems logical that you'd be able to extend that out, to your fence line, which could be just a few feet off the sidewalk. You wouldn't have a cover over it, but it's not necessarily part of the dwelling either. It's flat work, like you said a minute ago.
So a non-covered porch could extend beyond the setbacks at the time of the original build?
So what about, are you saying, Jason, so let's talk about a deck instead of a porch, right? Because that's probably the more likely scenario where you're going to build a deck that's going to approach possibly your property line. That would violate the setback if it were part of the structure, but if it's a deck, it's more.
Well, so for decks, the way that we've interpreted it right now is that a deck, if it has posts that go into the ground, those are considered a foundation. So our setback standard is measured to the foundation. And so if a deck has a foundation, we would say that's where it has to cut off. It has to meet the setback at that foundation. Mm-hmm. Any overhang is not penalized. That could theoretically extend into the setback, but where that foundation is, we're measuring to that.
So it doesn't have to be a continuous run of concrete to be part of the foundation. It can be a spot foundation, like you would see the round insets that you dig down to support a post.
Correct.
That would be part of the
That's
foundation as
how
well.
it's been interpreted, as long as I know. So
that seems sticky to me. Carla?
Yeah, no, for me personally, I have an issue with this entire process because this remodel that they're doing, we have a variance process. Why are we changing our city ordinance for one remodel? Why aren't they going through this variance process? They haven't even done it. Why are we so willing to change our city ordinance? I don't get it. We're taking a lot of time. We're taking city's time. Why are we even doing this?
Fair question. Would you like to come forward?
Yes.
I'm assuming you're the homeowner, is that right?
Hi, I'm Jill Carson. I am the owner of this 1969 Rambler that's been there since James Moyle built it in 1969. And I don't think that you were here the previous.
No, I was mayor that night. I was mayor pro tem.
Right.
Yeah.
All
So
we
Carla,
wanted to
hang on a second. Carla, were you here when?
I
He was.
was, yeah, and they opted
explained
to,
it?
yes, and if they delve into variance law a little bit deeper, their remodel would pass. They just need to, I can give them a case, they can quote that, and they can win their,
So when we
I mean, they would go through the variance process. I don't see why we need to go and change the ordinance for this one particular, because I don't think it's going to really apply to anywhere else.
So we'd love to hear from you. And I agree and disagree with Carla. I'm not disagreeing with you, Carla. Well, I guess what I'm saying is because I wasn't here that night, I felt like we were just reviewing the ordinance and looking at it for, logical points that could change or should change, which was the foundation of some of my comments. So as it specifically relates to this project, I agree with Carla that if there's a process we can follow that doesn't force us into a reevaluation of the entire ordinance, then that probably makes a lot more sense. But with that, please go ahead and address.
Well, we were told by Austin that it probably would not pass a variance
Okay.
because it doesn't necessarily have to be built across the whole front of the home. But all we wanted to do was come straight out from the home that was existing, that had a 10-foot egress in 1969. And so laws were changed, but that home's been there, set up there for 40 years before anybody was even built around it. And so, this is a lot of time, and a lot of time we waited for 2 more months or whatever to go through all these processes that we could have done in a variance if that was a possibility to do it. And we were told from the very first night that it was not a possibility. So that's why we were following these other things that we were doing.
Okay.
We're coming straight out from the home. It just seems like it's a little thing to everybody else. It's a huge thing to me. I've been there 26 years. I've watched 100 homes get built above me that are all $1 million homes. I gave away my property in the road in front, that we signed off rights to the utility company, so all those homes could be built. And that's all we're asking for. So in our mind, it seems silly that we've had to do this in the first place. It shouldn't have been such a big deal to me.
Yeah.
But
You're
we're
trying to build a
go
front porch.
through all of the processes, right?
Okay.
So.
And Austin, why is it that it would not pass that process?
Well, I mean, I'm not a legal expert, but so the variance process involves 5 criteria. And so, I mean, Hiram can comment more on this, but it's all based on the state law. And so you have to meet all 5 criteria in order to be granted a variance. One of those criteria is that the item cannot be self-imposed. What the interpretation of self-imposed is, I'm not sure. There's, it sounds like Carla interprets it one way. If I speak to some of our staff, they interpret it another way. But generally the way that staff has looked at this in the past, and whether that's correct or not, I'm not sure, is if something is a self-imposed restriction. So let's say I want to build a shed on my property, and I can build that shed on my property, I have the right to do that. But if I want to put that shed right on the front of my yard, right in the front setback, and I want a variance for that, that's a self-imposed thing. I'm putting it in an area that doesn't typically qualify for that. There's no reason. My property is not any different from many of my neighbors. It's a standard lot, and I'm asking for something. So Hiram, I don't know if I'm understanding that correctly, but that's the kind of counsel.
To me, the term self-imposed means anything I want. Whatever I want, I'm imposing upon myself, whether it's compliant or not. So it seems like that's very strange language to use in the criteria for
You know, in other
acceptance.
variants law, they call it self-created. Right, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot
So
of-
so I do want to make it very clear. I like their plan. I want them to be able to do it. I'm just very wary that we have been changing a lot of ordinances in a very short time for very small number of people. And I just feel like we need to take pause and see, why are we doing this?
Yeah,
It has nothing to do with the petitioner at all. I totally agree what they're doing. I like what they're doing. It looks good. I think it's great for the property. I am questioning the process that we're going through to allow that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Mayor, I think it's a perfect point, and I want to let you finish with the explanation, but you know, if there's a way that we could address this through the other channels, I totally agree with Carla that we shouldn't be burning time here
Right.
for one incident. It doesn't make sense. Go
We're
ahead.
almost done though.
Yeah,
Right.
We just need to make a
So-
vote tonight.
I'm
May I
sorry, tell me
just-
your name again.
Jill.
Jill.
Carson. May I
Um,
just say that someone mentioned, I think at this last meeting a month ago, this has been a couple month process, that maybe you're not changing, but as time goes on, that you're improving or adding on to an ordinance to make it applicable to some other people or some other homes that are older in this town that have been here forever, that might want to do the same thing, that might want to come straight out from their home, but you're not changing it, but maybe adding to or improving it as time goes on.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Jill. Now, Hiram, would you mind just running through the rest of that criteria?
Yeah, I'm happy to. And I imagine, I haven't looked specifically at Alpine's ordinance, but it would need to match these criteria. And I think we've looked at it before, and I think they follow this, but this is Utah Code 10-9A-702. And sub 2A, it says the appeal authority may grant a variance only if sub 1, literal enforcement of the ordinance would cause an unreasonable hardship for the applicant that is not necessary to carry out the general purpose of the land use ordinances. 2, there are special circumstances attached to the property that do not generally apply to other properties in the same zone. 3, granting the variance is essential to the enjoyment of a substantial property right possessed by other property in the same zone. 4, the variance will not substantially affect the general plan and will not be contrary to public interest. And 5, the spirit of the land use ordinance is observed and substantial justice is done. Now, in determining whether there is an undue hardship, there's other criteria that you can see there. One of the things that will be looked at is in 2B sub 2, it says in determining whether or not enforcement of the land use ordinance would cause unreasonable hardship. Under 2A, the appeal authority may not find an unreasonable hardship if the hardship is self-imposed or economic. So generally, what that means is, self-imposed, self-created, anything like that. Normally what variance officers, appeal authorities are looking at is the layout of the land, right? That your property is situated, something, you have a giant slope, or there's something that precludes you from using your property as other people around you can use it, and you didn't create it. You didn't dig a hole in your background or backyard or plant trees and now say, yeah, well, I can't put my shed there because there's trees there, whatever it might be.
Okay, all right.
And Mayor, if I may, so throughout this process, I've always given the Carsons and their representative, Chris Hill, I've always told them that the variance is an option. In my opinion, I don't know if you have a strong case for that, but that is an option. And what they were coming forward with last time, so the last city council meeting that this came here, it wasn't to change the ordinance, or it wasn't for a variance. The reason why they were here is because our ordinance requires any non-conforming building that's going to have an addition has to get approval to do that. And so they were here for that. The planning commission made a recommendation that we recommend that they should be able to add a porch so long as it doesn't encroach on the side setback.
On the side setback.
And so that was the motion. And then out of that city council meeting, we decided maybe an ordinance change was in store. And so that's why we then sent it back to
Okay.
planning commission.
Fair enough.
And if I recall, last time we discussed this, I think Craig had just an opinion that this may actually qualify, for a variance as not being self-imposed. But I think Carla's point's a good one, right? The question is not just, this particular home, but every, home in this situation. Would we, is this appropriate in a broad basis for, a dozen more homes in the future?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I sympathize. My front porch is my favorite part of my house, and it is an enhancement. And it's also not part of the dwelling. So it's, I remember when we built our home, I wanted to push our house a little further toward the street, but I couldn't because the porch is 10 feet deep, and that was part of the structure. And so I lived with it. But in the event that it does enhance the home, it does provide, I don't know. I just feel like if you move through those channels and then it fails, then coming back to city council is a more effective way to do it. Because if you can get through that process, you're on your way. And I don't want to see your project delayed anymore. But how long would it take to move through the appeal process? I mean, how quickly can we get that
So the
done?
standard procedure for that is we receive an application, we'd give that to the appeal authority. The appeal authority has a 30-day period to schedule a meeting, and then they'll set a date. Then that date will be the hearing date. The applicant would be invited to come in, staff would be there, and then they would hear the case. And then typically what happens is usually the decision is not rendered that same day of the hearing. The hearing officer says, okay, thank you for the information. I will get back with you. And then they have, I believe it's 45 days. I'd have to double check that.
Holy crap.
Answer back.
So Mayor,
Yes, Jason.
just to clarify, my recollection is different than Austin's on the planning commission. When it first came to planning commission, I believe it was Sylvia, after hearing it, said, yeah, well, this is kind of a no-brainer. Let's approve them to have this 6 inches modifications. Then Austin, I believe, responded, no, the ordinance doesn't allow us to do that, based on exactly what he laid out right just now. So then the planning commission came back and said, okay, well, then we will have to do it this way, the way that Austin says it. So the desire was there to say exactly what we're doing. To Carla's point, this isn't just, in my opinion, for one person and one house. All ordinance changes that we do ordinance changes quite frequently over the years. It typically comes with someone saying, hey, I have an issue with this, or this could be better, or this is causing problems. We evaluate it, we look at it and say, it could be better. This is a situation that's going to help everyone that hasn't built a house within the last 40 years. To your point, Mayor, of course you can't build it next to the road closer because it's a brand new house. These individuals are living by new sets of ordinances that weren't there when they first put their house in. So in my opinion, granted, this is brought up from the recipient, the individuals here, but it was brought up in a way that made me look at it and say, you know what, our ordinance can be better for the old timers in the city who have some of these non-conforming lots where we don't lock them into something that's unreasonable. And in this case, I felt like when the planning commission first heard about it, they felt it was unreasonable. I felt it was unreasonable. This benefits all older homes in, I think, a very fair way. So I think it's a little unfair to say we're just doing this just for one person. We're improving the ordinance in a way that's going to benefit lots of people potentially down the road that might run into similar situations like this.
Thank you, Jason, for clarifying that, because I think Jason makes some good points. I mean, we have a lot of homes in the city that are capable of becoming more beautiful and adding to their neighborhoods and enhancing their neighborhoods if given the liberty to do so. The challenge with that is it potentially open a Pandora's box for those people who, how do you qualify which homes get to go beyond
Well, it seems to me pretty simple and pretty clear, though. They had an ordinance at one point. in time.
Yeah.
They have the setback, and this particular one is 6 to 12 inches or whatever, and it's not even significant
Yeah.
in any stretch. And so I personally don't think we'll see that it opens up a Pandora's box. I think if there is some people who want to stick a porch on their old house, this will provide an opportunity. I agree with what Jason how Jason spelled it out there.
Good.
And yes, we have gone to a lot of work on this, but I think it's our job. If that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. And
good deal.
And so I'm personally good with it.
Okay,
Ready.
good.
Just one other comment on that, Mayor. I think, as I look at some of the new homes compared to some, more traditional older homes, some of the new homes are tall, wide, deep.
Yeah.
And, these old homes are not exactly more obtrusive if they were, to extend to maybe the former setback.
Yeah.
In this case. Now, will that be true in every case? I don't know, but
Okay.
perhaps so.
Okay. So with that, is there any more discussion on the way things have been rewritten, the ordinance is rewritten? And is someone prepared to make a motion?
Well, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay.
I do like the wording in the green. The green seems good to me. I don't know that it covered or any of that kind of thing needs to be changed as we started talking about it right in the first. It sounds good to me.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2021-09 as proposed.
Okay, we have a motion by Lon Lot to approve. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Jason Thielen. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
I think I heard unanimous, but any opposed? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Go build your porch. It'll make your home beautiful. Probably already is beautiful, but more beautiful. Okay. Rank and choice voting. So as we go into this discussion, I'm not sure how much of a discussion you guys want to dedicate to this, but my personal feeling is I like things just the way they are. I feel like ranked choice voting opens up potential issues. I don't mind things the way they are. I don't mind having primaries. I think primaries force us into a situation where we evaluate the group and narrow it down already, and then get more focused on the two remaining candidates for each position. That's my personal opinion. If I had a vote, I would vote to stay where we are, but I will open it up. Anything that you'd like to add to that, Lon?
I thought through it and I'm ready to stay the way we are.
Okay.
I don't
Greg,
think I need to discuss anymore.
Good deal. Anything?
I think there's a lot of positives with ranked choice, right? And on the other hand, it just doesn't add up, right? I mean, for one, we heard that this was used in the US, 100 years ago, but don't know why it was stopped, right?
Yeah.
There's been one round in 2 cities, and this is what, I think we can give this a few rounds to see if this is, it just doesn't seem to add up to me at all as a proven model, so.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good to watch the county commission appointment thing.
Yeah.
That's a ranked choice voting thing. Watch how that one works. Hear the comments after that's done.
Yeah, and they had that on Saturday.
Oh, that is done.
Yeah,
Saturday.
it already happened.
Yeah.
You guys, the ranked choice voting's been enacted in the caucuses for many years. That's what
Right.
they've gone to.
Right. Right.
So.
Yeah, I think I made the comment last meeting that ranked choice voting to me feels like the county convention. It just,
Okay.
it feels more like, like Carla said, like a caucus process.
Great hotkeys to get the.
I gave you guys.
Shane, your audio is on.
My apologies. I had to get a few company out of my present.
Welcome to the meeting. Carla, do you have any comments on the ranked choice?
You know, I have mixed feelings, actually. I think there are advantages to it and disadvantages. The main advantage, though, is I wonder, would we really look at this if it weren't financially advantageous for us to switch over? If it wasn't a finances weren't involved, I don't think we'd even be having this debate. We wouldn't be deliberating it. We wouldn't even be thinking about it. While the county has stated that, they've had positive results with Vineyard, Utah. Vineyard is nothing like Alpine. Their median age is 21.8 years old. So their voting population is totally different than what we're dealing with here. And so, even if you just look at the statistical data based on it, but a lot of that is skewed by race and socioeconomic classes, things that we don't really experience here in Alpine. So that kind of, the data doesn't really support it. So I'm honestly, I can go either way right now, which is surprising, I know, because I've been so adamantly against it. But as I researched more this week regarding, and just delved into the statistical data, on the surface, it looks awful. But then when you kind of go through it and take away, the aspects that would not apply to Alpine, it gives me pause to think about it. But I don't completely trust the data coming from Vineyard, Utah, just because of their median age. It's not what we're experiencing here.
I think it's a really good point. Vineyard is a very young population. And I think it presents dynamics that you're right, we don't see here. Okay, Jason, do you have any thoughts to add?
I'm tend to lean towards doing it for both the cost savings, and I think at the end of the day, the results will be similar, but that's just my opinion.
Okay.
I mean, Australia has been using it for, over a century. So I don't know. But Jason, would you even be thinking about it if it weren't a cost savings?
Oh, no. I mean, obviously the cost saving is a big push.
What are we talking about? Remind me of the numbers again.
15,000 for the primary, 15,000 for the general.
Yeah, and like in the last election, we didn't need a primary, so this cost savings wasn't as significant.
Right.
So in years where you do force a primary, it's a bigger difference than those that you don't.
Yeah, it's less about cost to me and more about having less campaigning.
Yeah,
and signs all over, pros and cons, but but it just seems crazy to me. This has been around for centuries. It's been used just so little. And, and like, if it's such a great idea, why isn't it?
Hasn't caught on.
Why isn't it in Iowa, right? I mean, or, in some more places, but
so much for being on the cutting edge.
Yeah. I'll let someone else prove it for us. That's but I don't know. Yeah,
Good point.
there's a lot to like.
What do you mean? Vineyard did prove it for us. It's been successful for them. That's not enough for you? What kind of data do you want, Greg? Are you going to pick and choose?
I'm sensing a slight bit of sarcasm.
Yeah, but I like Carla's on one tonight. This is interesting. If Carla votes for it, I might just vote for it. She was so against it. It just was just funny that she was so opposed to it just 2 weeks ago.
I was, because I was looking at preliminary data, meaning that I was just looking at the pure numbers. But then when you delve into the numbers, it talked about, people of certain race, how they have a really high percentage of invalid ballots. And I don't, I'm, for better or worse, I mean, worse for me because I'm an ethnic minority, but Alpine is pretty homogeneous in its population. So I don't feel like our percentage of invalid ballots would be, or, what they call exhausted ballots would be as high as what the national rate is. I think, places like San Francisco has had issues because of that. You've got homeless people that are, like I said, socioeconomic classes are disadvantaged in ranked choice voting. I don't feel like we would have that as much. I feel like as far as the data, it could come out very similar. So I'm very, very torn, honestly.
Well, I was interested, I asked the county people, do they get as many invalid ballots? And they said there was no statistical difference, which sounds like there's like a little bit more, right? Since it's not statistically more.
Yeah, well, and I think the reason they got those results from Vineyard, like I said, you've got the median age of being 21.8 years old. If that's the case, you think about it, that's probably the first or second time that most of these people have ever voted. So of course you're going to pay attention to see how you're supposed to do it. So I'm sure they take the time. So the learning curve for them is very short. Whereas the older you get, the learning curve becomes longer and longer. So this would be, where we would have to be concerned is our more senior voters. That's what we need to be thinking about. And the education curve for them being a lot more steep than a 21-year-old.
Good. Is anybody prepared to make a motion?
I'm not. Honestly, I'm so up in the air right now.
I'll make a motion. I'll make it quick, because I'll just decide to move forward. I make a motion to approve resolution 2021 implementing ranked choice voting for the 2021 election.
If it's a tie, I'm not sure there's any doubt where I'm going on this vote.
I know, that's right.
You didn't even call for a second, Mayor. Come on.
I'm getting there. Okay, so we have a motion by Jason Thielen. And I'll hold my editorial on the motion.
I will second it so we
second?
can. I will second so we can vote and move on.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. So we have a motion by Jason Thielen to approve, seconded by Carla Merrill. Any further discussion on the motion?
I do have a discussion as it pertains to the comment about elderly getting this. I am concerned about that, how the voting will be if there's
a little confusion about
it.
The difference between then and now.
But honestly, though, Lon, in researching it, most of the results do come out the same as it would in a plurality situation where, the current situation. Honestly, how it will go with Alpine, who knows? Because any of the data that you see out there, there's nothing that is similar to what I see our demographics being that I could compare it to and make a definitive decision either way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand. I think it does.
It's interesting to me that the first time this was presented was 2 years ago, I think. And remember the prevailing thought then was that it had only been used by island nations in the past and that it had been abandoned by those nations. And now, Carla, you mentioned Australia. Is Australia using it today?
It's an island.
It is.
Okay.
It is. It's Australia, Maine, couple provinces in California, Oregon. There are places here and there, but I think when you have like diversified citizenship, it's not as you're not doing a service to the community by going through that. Where I feel like we're kind of unique in that we're a homogeneous population that it would definitely be cheaper if we were in a situation where we would have to do a primary, that it would save money for the city on that. And I do feel like our population is more educated and a little bit more, I don't know. It makes me sound like Alpiners are, but I do feel like our population is a little bit more educated and that we would probably be able to come up to speed quicker than some of these other urban areas. that are seeing issues.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's why I asked him outside of Australia, right? Where can you point to? Maine has used it. And I think they had a situation where they might have gotten a different outcome. And I think you just need to recognize it's a different system. It may be better, right? But I think they elected like an independent that might not have won, or vice versa. But it's
Yeah.
not just elderly that it's complicated for, it's also computers, right? So the county has this vast system where you try to roll up ranked choice voting, and I've used it a bunch of times, it just like crashes, or, you wait for 30 minutes, won't come back. Now, maybe no one's using it now, maybe it'll work, but even there, it was a little, maybe the system's too complex, or,
Well-
or they were the graphics were too advanced, but.
Yeah, I don't think they have the full thing online. The one thing that did, when I was researching the thing, the one thing that did concern me though is their data is different from so I looked up City of Vineyards results compared to what the county was reporting on wasted ballots, and their data isn't matching for one of the seats. I think for council seat number 1, it was the same. For council seat number 2, it differed. So I don't know. Take it for what it is.
Well, I do like Greg's comment about time, the campaigning aspect of things, or the signs in the yards, things like that, just be limited.
Yeah, we all do get fatigued by that.
Yeah, very.
Now, that said, we may be lucky to have a primary here. Who knows?
Yeah, we didn't last
Who
time.
knows? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any more pertinent comments before we go to a vote? All right, so we have a vote to approve by Jason Thielen, which was seconded by Carla Merrill, to go to ranked choice voting in the upcoming election. It represents a cost savings for the city, especially if we do have enough candidates to create a primary. We'll put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Nay.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so we have a tie. All right, well, I guess that puts me on the vote. First of all, I'll explain why I'm gonna vote no. I actually, and I'll admit I'm a traditionalist. I like things the way they were. I didn't like mail-in voting. I still don't like mail-in voting for a lot of reasons. I recognize that it does increase participation, and that's a great thing. That's a great part of it. But I also think it has delayed the process and created a situation where things are in doubt for the longer. I fear that this would do the same. And I know that that's contradictory to what a lot of people point to. But I prefer to keep things the way they are until they are proven to be a true benefit by other communities. I don't see any reason to be at the forefront of making that decision. So I will vote no. And the motion fails to pass. Okay. Last item on the agenda is the structures. Hopefully all of you got a chance to see the email that came out from Shane, giving us a couple of options. Shane, do you want to jump in and talk about that?
Yeah, yep. Sorry for my little outburst there in my casual attire. I left the video off, but I had an epic fail on the mute buttons. So I know this is the city council priority, so I tried to look at the quickest way we could get something done up there. Smith Steelworks has done a bunch of work for us. They've got state contracts, and I talked with him, and he said he could get this put together and fabricated in 2 to 3 weeks. And so I don't think anyone will be quicker than that with the current conditions that we're dealing with building materials and different things. And these, the other thing is these are built to last. They're built really, really well. The picture that Austin just had up, if you can go back to that one, Austin. So both the two proposals, I just asked him for what kind of stock plans that he had. So he had a 12 by 12 and an 18 by 20. This building is an 18 by 20 that was built in a park or something up in somewhere in Lehigh. The one difference between what is shown here and what we would have, this has a wood tongue and groove under the metal roof. And we would not have that unless we wanted it. He recommended not doing it. So that would be the one difference, but I just wanted to give you a picture just for reference.
So no wood in the roof.
That's correct. Unless you say you want it. This developer specifically had requested this. But wood usually means more maintenance and things. And I think that's why the recommendation was to not go with the wood. To not have to, take care of refinishing it. And it's kind of awkward because there's the beams and things in the roof structure that you'd have to work around to finish it. So ours would be very similar to the pavilions that we have, like at Creekside Park. Other than they would be a gable roof instead of a hip style roof. He can do hip style. It's more money and a little more complicated to do that. So it seemed to be a good alternative to kind of make it blend in. My thought was to just do the kind of rusted steel like we have on the sign in front of City Hall. He's all set up. He has a powder coat bay. If you wanted powder coating, he could do it, and they would be just like the ones at Creekside. So that seemed like a good option. You could put a bench in there. I provided one example of a kind of a bike repair station. They have other colors than red, but I couldn't get one of them to print. And this is just one that I found that seemed like, kind of a nice one, but those that are more into the biking scene might have a better idea than me, since I'm not. So just an example of that.
Yeah, we could probably just go off of what Corner Canyon already has set up in theirs and just get what they're usually green.
Okay.
But similar.
And we did talk about that, going up there and see what models they have and things, but we had not made it up there yet.
And you could just take a quick drive up Suncrest, the trailhead where off to the left as you're headed up.
Okay.
Right there.
Yeah, it's part of this Corner Canyon.
I can jump up there with you if you want, Shane.
Okay. And I have the Parks guys' contact information for Draper too. And I'm sure it's just kind of a standard or something for them. So yeah,
it is. From what I've noticed, it's the same thing that they have, and it's the same thing that they have along the trail that goes along the Murdoch Canal. It seems like it's the same model.
Okay. All right.
And wasn't there a scout project that came in at one point offering to put one near the bench at the beginning of the rodeo trail?
There was, now that you mention it.
Yeah, we've still never seen anything go up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to follow up on that and see. I don't know if when the scout program kind of went away, if he decided not to follow through. I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah.
Shane, when you say rusted steel, is it actually rusted steel or is it like painted that tone?
No, it's not painted. So what they do when this kind of steel comes to be fabricated, it actually has kind of an oil coating on it. So they take all that oil off and then they spray an acid on there. I can't remember which comes first, but there's like a vinegar wash and an acid wash, and it like rusts it just immediately. And so it would come here with that rustic finish like that. And then just with the weather, it would just continue to do that.
Okay.
That's the same process they used on the sign in front of City Hall.
But they last.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in terms of the two different options for the size of building, I like the larger size because it feels more substantial. It makes more of the statement that we're after. There's a structure here and helps us layer, as we've talked about in the past, why there shouldn't be shooting in that area. And also under a structure that size, like Shane said, you put a picnic table or something else that just shows that people gather there. So we can make the case that it qualifies as a structure.
Right, so within there, we're gonna have a sign, a repair station, right? And, you know, could you fit a picnic table in the smaller size with that, or, you know?
In the
what's the
smaller
use?
size, I believe that would be the same size as those 2 or 3 little structures on the west side of Creekside Park.
Yeah.
So in those, we do have a picnic table, and it's pretty much just that. If we went with a smaller one, I was thinking maybe extend the concrete pad one way, maybe to the north or something, and put that bike repair station just outside of the building.
Yeah.
I
Rather
don't
than
think
on
we
this.
need a picnic table. I think it's something that they would have to maintain and worry about getting vandalized up there, because it's going to be up at the top, right? This is at Firecross, right? Or Crossfire.
Crossfire.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think a bench and the bike repair will be enough.
Yeah, I
That's
just
my
like having
opinion.
the option to do something else if we wanted to later on. The bigger structure supports that. Sorry, we have Mr. Peterson at the front that would like to say.
Oh, Alan Gilman.
Sorry, Gilman.
I don't have an opinion. I'm just wondering if the wood is there to support the metal roof. I see kids getting on top of the metal roof and maybe have it sag. So I don't really have an opinion there, but I just point that out.
Okay, thank you.
And so just to carry this on just a little bit, Austin, if you could go back to that sign, the little kind of a rendering drawing. I think it was the previous right there. So we're working with the same company, and hopefully we'll have this all put together, and Ginger will be finished with the maps to bring to the next city council meeting. I actually have a price for the kind of structure part of this sign. We're just calling it an accessory structure. It actually helps with meeting the sign ordinance because our signs are kind of big. So anyway, they would be very similar in design. They're not super close together, but they would tie together. You know, metal roof and the same size kind of posts and cross members and everything there. So
I like that.
And Shane, what about that? If you know, is the roof going to be strong enough with wind without the wood under it? Would it be strong enough?
Yeah. The majority of the ones he does don't have the wood under it.
Okay.
Pretty heavy gauge metal on the top, on the roof.
Yeah, it's like 26 gauge. And without the wood, he may have some additional support members in there. I'm not sure, but I know that it's designed very well. And like I said, it's just like our buildings or our pavilions at Creekside Park. They don't have wood under them. So. And I should just ask, so we'll be prepared for the next meeting, but the price that I had them give us on the sign, kind of the structure for the sign is the same. It's just a rusted finish. If you wanted powder coating, I would have that updated by the next meeting.
Okay, we don't really need to vote on this. We just need to give you some direction, right, Shane?
So the part of the vote that I think would be helpful, as far as, you know, we've already said there's a motion to build the structure, but we didn't know what we were building. So now we have some costs here. There's probably another, depending on which size, on the larger building, I'm estimating another probably 6,000 in concrete and kind of rebar and other materials. So the larger one, I would say, if we could approve like 40,000 to cover all of that, we'll have to do a little bit have some gravel up there to do some road work just to access with the equipment needed. But in the budget we had it was labeled as a kiosk in Lambert Park, and we had 5,000. So we're quite a bit more than what we had planned. The money's there. It's just kind of a shuffling thing. And I wanted to cover our bases for the, when we have our audit. Since the procurement code says I can only go 15,000 without city council approval. So it's mainly on here for funding and just for sure which direction you want to go with size and everything. Or if you want something totally different, we can scrap all this and come back with something different.
Does anybody feel like this doesn't do the job?
I don't know that it doesn't do the job. I would just prefer to stay as cheap as possible and accomplish the objective. If we can do the smaller one and still accomplish the objective, that's the one I'd go for. I don't think many people at all will even utilize it at all.
I think with the bike stand up there, you're gonna get some people who'll stop up there and use it. It's at the top, so you're climbing.
Mhm.
And there are people who are looking for a place to rest who will probably occupy it. I don't think you're gonna get a ton of people up there, but you know, a few people a day.
So that's my point though. I mean, if we can accomplish the objective with half the cost, a big one, use do 2 different places or something.
In the shaded, the bench would be shaded in there as well, right?
Yeah,
That's the intent.
I mean, I'd just look at a cost analysis on that. It's like, if we can accomplish the objective at the 20,000 or whatever it is, 17 something, and then some for the concrete and whatever, then do that and then build another one in another place.
Yeah, the reason, I guess, my position that I stated a little earlier is there's really been a lack of clarity on the part of the Forest Service, of our congressional people, of our local county officials on what actually qualifies as a structure. And so what I don't want is for it to be something less substantial that we can't defend as a structure. To me, a bigger footprint creates a better opportunity to defend it as a structure. Therefore, they should be enforcing the shooting laws that you can't shoot within 600 feet of a structure. I think the smaller it is, the less defensible it is. I don't know if that's true. That's just the way it feels to me. And it also feels like if you do have a larger structure and you did decide that you wanted to do something more with it down the road, you already have the foundation and the shelter for it, whatever that might be. Just my opinion. But I think after so many discussions with the Forest Service and everybody else, legal, law enforcement, what qualifies as a structure, it's always met with a shrug. I don't know, and it's frustrating. So we're really putting it out there to hope and hoping that this qualifies.
The question is a bench, and I think having a bench there makes it look like it's an occupied structure. Now, if you put in a picnic table, is it more so, right? I don't know, right? It's got it for a larger group setting.
What's Hiram's opinion on this?
Hiram?
Yeah, I tend to agree with the mayor's thoughts on this. In terms of a structure, I apologize. We've looked into this and there just isn't a lot of clarity on how they are going to define a structure. Obviously, the best kind of structure would be some sort of enclosed structure completely, right? If we could have a complete brick house up there, that would, we'd be able to definitively say that is a structure up there, but that's not practical on this trail. And so the larger, the more it looks like it's occupied or used by people, including the picnic table. Those are just my opinions. I think the more you're leaning towards a better argument that that's a structure that people gather at, they have picnics up there, whatever it might be. And so it justifies us saying, well, there shouldn't be any shooting around that.
I tend to agree also with Greg Gordon, that one of the federal guidelines is a building. Another one is developed recreational area. And if it was large enough that we wanted to put a picnic table within there, I think that would be wise to do, just to have that option for us.
Okay. Any other discussion? Would anyone like to make a motion? And this will be a roll call vote.
I'll make a motion that we approve funding for the mid-size, I won't call it small, a mid-size structure in that $20,000 range. Shane, can you tell me the costs on that less
The
than
smaller.
large?
Yeah, Lon, just estimating, I would say with the concrete, probably around 24,000 for the smaller one.
Okay,
And what was the larger one? You said 40,000, is that right?
Yeah, about roughly 40,000. Mhm.
and we're talking 6 feet difference? Or 8
Well,
feet
12 by
difference.
12 versus 18 by 20.
Oh, 18 by 20.
Yeah.
12 by 12 is just a little bigger than the size of the
Yeah.
pop-ups that you use out in the park.
Right.
Okay.
So Lana was saying the the medium one, but there's not, there's just a small one and a larger. one.
Right.
And your motion is for the smaller one.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion by Lon. Do we have a second? Going once. Twice. Okay, there's no second to the motion, so the motion fails to pass.
I think.
Lon, I would have seconded it if our legal said yes, that would be better. But because he thought that 18 by 20 would be more legally defensible, I'm gonna have to go with that one if we're gonna do it.
And this may be an investment on future fire costs, really, that we could encounter. But with those small ones in the park, I just wonder if you could even fit the bench and sign and a bike station in there. That may just be too tight, right? Because aren't those just
Pretty tight.
it's kind of a 4-person table. That's my concern,
Yeah. So would somebody else like to make a motion?
I'll motion to approve up to $40,000 for the structure in Lambert Park near Crossfire Trail with a metal roof without wood and rusted beam posts with a bench as proposed.
Okay.
And a bike repair station and the sign.
Okay. So that's a motion by Greg Gordon. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second it with the question, did you want to put on there that the structure is the 18 by 20 foot structure?
I did actually, yeah, the 18 by 20. Yeah, I need to, I neglected to note that.
Okay. So we have a motion by Greg Gordon, seconded by Jason Thielen. Any discussion on the motion? Lon?
Yeah, yes. So Shane, help clarify costs here, though. If I remember reading that right, there was no, we need to do an ad for the sign because the sign isn't in that either.
That's a separate item.
It's a separate item. So
Right.
in this motion, then 40 isn't going to cover that. It's only going to cover the building. It's only going to cover, I don't think it's going to cover the picnic table.
So I can't remember if I listed that in the options. I have it here. I want to
So
say
I
they're
guess
like 1,200.
My only part of this discussion is I don't think we'll hit the dollar amount, right? If we buy the building and a table and a sign, we need to make sure we get our dollar amount in there so that we don't have to come back and do it again.
Right.
Well, and
So-
I guess there are other things we could do to accomplish that. Maybe we could get some donations. for things.
Or Shane, can you just do the sign
Looks like-
without it being part of the motion?
I guess the main addition was concrete, right? And
Right, because the sign will fall under, some of these other things will fall under your ability to just buy it.
Yeah.
So my comments on that are you ought to revise your motion then so that we can just get the building for the costs and then work on those other things.
Shane, did we not approve? I thought we approved money for the signage. I know you talked about the $5,000 we approved before, but isn't the signage a completely different topic?
It is. So that's what I'll bring back hopefully to the next meeting. So we had planned in Lambert Park 4 signs. There was one at the rodeo grounds, the trailhead below the rodeo grounds, one at the Bowery, one at the Moyle Drive turnaround, and one at the south parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want the exact same sign, we could just add one more.
But we don't necessarily need to attach it to this motion.
No, we could take care of it with the overall signage for the park, if that makes sense.
What do you think, Greg? Do you want to pull that out of your motion?
Well, yeah, and do we need a dollar amount affixed to this or just
Maybe
a
a limit.
approval?
I think Shane's asked for a $40,000 limit and coming under.
Right.
Yeah.
For the
Yep.
structure.
Mhm.
So
For the
maybe, Greg,
structure.
maybe just amend it for the structure, for the 18 by 20 structure for up to $40,000.
And the rest will be covered separately. Yeah, agreed. I'll amend that to be only the structure, Bonnie, and not the bench, but yeah, and
Bike station.
sign and bike station.
Okay, we can work with that.
Are there any questions on that motion? And Jason, do you still second that motion?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right, this will be a roll call vote, starting with Carla.
Yay.
Jason.
Jason Thielen, yes.
Greg Gordon, yes.
And Lon.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Great, let's get our structure.
The only
Thank you,
detail
Shane.
that we didn't cover probably is if anyone has a strong feeling on color of the roof.
I think it should be brown.
Yeah.
I thought brown over
Okay.
green.
Purple.
Brown like the tower.
Red with the drum and feather.
Okay. We can work with that. We'll get it moving tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I am going to have to leave the meeting. I'll turn the rest of the meeting over to Lon. I have a commitment that I've got to keep. So Lon, thank you for stepping
Okay.
in.
And I also need to roll off this meeting. I apologize. I'm not feeling well at all. So
We'll just have to, let's see, we have 3. Okay, we're still good. Jason,
Feel
thanks
better,
for
Jason.
filling in there where you don't feel good.
all right, thanks. Bye.
Goodbye. Okay, we'll move into staff reports then. Chief William, do you want to talk?
Just a real quick reminder, tomorrow morning, 7:30 is public safety board meeting. We'll be discussing budget. So
Okay.
everybody's invited to attend. That's a
Okay,
Highland City Hall.
that's all. Okay, 7:30 or 7:30, right? Okay. Okay, Austin.
I have a few items here. So first item, we have been, so our code enforcement has been looking at open space recently. They've noticed a large number of encroachments. And, you know, I know the city council has talked about encroachments in the past. And so there are a number of properties where there's significant things, you know, landscaping, other structure, even structures on city open space. So I guess the question, I just want to bring this to the city council attention that, you know, it's something that we're looking at. We kind of want direction from the city council, how aggressive to go with that. We'll probably be bringing a report to the city council in the upcoming meeting that will kind of give you some more details with regards to that, but I just wanted to get it on your radars for now. Let's see, next item I have.
Is Tommy gonna come and?
Yeah, Tommy
do
would,
that, yeah.
Tommy would come and do that. And he's also preparing, and I don't know if that would be in that same meeting or a later meeting, but he wants to kind of do it's kind of like the status of code enforcement in Alpine, kind of like
that'd be
an
great.
annual update, like,
Can-
okay,
can-
this is what, these are the problems we're facing.
Yeah.
And these are the challenges that we're seeing, and
It's a great idea.
yeah,
Can,
so
even
can we
semi-
have that more regular than annually?
yeah.
Yeah, like
for sure.
semi-annual, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a
I'd
great
say
idea.
quarter, every quarter or
Yeah.
something. That way we can not be surprised by something like we get surprised by.
Yeah, and he's doing a really good job with that. He's also been preparing kind of some articles for the news lines and stuff. So there's all sort, his style is get the information out there and, inform the people, educate the people. So that's kind of his style, and I fully support it. So. Okay, other item I have is, I don't know if how many council members were on the city council, but a few years ago at the top of Pfeiffer Horn, there was a property exchange that was approved a couple years ago. It's a land swap, 2 triangular pieces where a gas line ran through there. So that was approved by the city, but it never got recorded. And now the property has changed hands. They've sold it to someone else. And what he wants to do, he doesn't want to necessarily swap the land, but he does want to try and purchase a portion of the city piece of land that was exchanged. So I've asked him to just kind of put together a proposal on that. It is something that deals with city open space. It requires a supermajority vote, something that would be coming to a future meeting. So I just.
So does the city own it currently, although it's not recorded?
We do. We do own it. Since they didn't record it, I mean, we approved the swap, but they did not record it, so we still own it's, as far as the county records are concerned, we still own that other
Well,
piece.
my recollection is we approved it, we said this would be good, and that people never finalized themselves on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It was an offer, if I remember right,
Yeah,
it was an offer we made when we did that, and it still just sat there. So
so
That may be, we don't, yeah.
So we agreed to give this up.
we did.
And then
It
but they
it
didn't
would
follow
straighten
through.
up,
Yeah,
it took a weird pie shape, a pizza pie shape into our place that the property to the south, just this one we were talking about, and Robinson using access to the trail. So that yeah, you were there.
Okay, so here we go.
So we were going to do a pie-shaped swap. He was gonna give us the back corner, that upper part right there, and we were gonna give him the front corner. It was just
Yep,
gonna
it was,
flip.
as I recall, it was a square foot for square foot
Yeah.
trade.
Correct.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
would have helped us by being able to access back into our city property and even have a parking area if we chose to back in. Scroll down a little bit there,
Yeah, so
back in there, we go back in, clear back in there. And the trailhead starts, or that's the trailhead. So the discussion I remember is we were going to try and do that, gives us a possibility of getting into our property a little easier, and anyway.
yeah.
and Austin, is he asking for the same thing basically?
No, it's a little bit different. So maybe let me turn on the aerial image here. So up on the front of this.
So do we want to talk about this more now, or should we
Well,
wait until we have more of the
Yeah,
council?
he'll come together, he'll come with a formal
Yeah, let's-
proposal. So we probably don't want to get into it too much right now.
Let's move.
It's just to
past
kind of
that
show
right
you.
now.
But basically, he wants to get some of this triangle, not the full triangle, but just some of it. But again,
Okay,
those details will
yeah.
be worked out
Yeah, let's
in a later meeting.
get it in, but let's have the council here. We're halfway here.
Okay, all right, so the last thing I have for the city council here is we've received, I spoke with a resident earlier today. She said she was unable to attend tonight. She wanted to come to the public comment period. But she has some concerns about Creekside Park, in particular that Piccadilly Circle. Let me actually just pull it up here on the map so you can get a visual for what I'm talking about. So this cul-de-sac here that is on the west end of the park. She says that there's frequent parking going on, and so lots of people are just parking in here instead of parking in the designated parking that we have in the park. They come and just park in the back of this cul-de-sac. The whole thing fills up with cars, and then they're having recitals and musical concerts and all sorts of different things are going on in this portion of the park here. And so she has a number of concerns with that. She first of all, she wants to say, I don't want to just be the complainer. I know I moved next to a park, but I would like to, I think it's a safety issue. If you ever had to get an emergency vehicle in there, there's no room to turn around. And she's wondering if something could be done, maybe some type of signage that could say this is, that please use the parking on the other side or something to that effect. She's also had some experiences with teenagers that go in there and they've been lighting off fireworks and other things. So basically she's just concerned that they come over there. She said she's seen motorized vehicles that enter the park, and that's the place where they enter the park because they feel like it's, well, according to her, it's a kind of secluded part of the park. So they feel like they can get in and out without people seeing them and raising attention before the police are called, and they can respond to that. So anyways, I don't, I told her I'd bring it up tonight, that it would be a city council decision if something was ever to be done about putting signage or anything like that there.
And these people having recitals in their park, there's no limit on that, right? They can go, set up their own chairs and play a violin, right? And
yeah, and it's probably, maybe because of the pandemic, they've been trying to find an outdoor place to do that. I don't know what it is. She did mention that at one time BYU orchestra or something like that came and they brought big trucks and unloaded the whole thing and basically had a concert in the park.
Yeah, that was a one-time permission only thing that, if I remember, we did. This is a family park though, and if we are having, we've asked that no organized sports teams use it. And so if we're having some kind of organized other type of things, then we ought to address that if it's not a family park thing.
Other things, she said she sees, teenagers on golf carts, on, side-by-side ATVs going, they go through this area frequently as well. The firework incident, she said they lit some like big ball object and they actually launched it towards the houses to the south, and it exploded in midair and all this debris shot everywhere. And then they all got in their cars and took off in a panic after that. So anyways, she just thinks it's an issue.
Okay. I don't know what we can discuss tonight. Let's get it on an agenda, I guess. Get it on an agenda and get the whole council here, and if we and staff ought to have some kind of recommendation as well as to signage. I know we deal with some of that by some of our other parks, but let's move that to a council agenda another time.
Okay, we'll do that. And that's all I have from planning and zoning. So thank you.
Okay, Hiram.
I have nothing to report.
Okay.
Talk about.
Thank you. Bonnie. Please. Oh, yeah, the fire chief. Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, I would say it would be no different than we've had in the past. We restricted it fairly heavy last year, and unless we restrict it even more, I don't know that the council, Carla, do you feel any different? Firework restrictions the same as before?
Oh, definitely, if not more, because I know we've had, we're only at 56% to capacity this year, which is lower than what we were at last year.
Right. So, Greg, any?
No, agree. Yeah.
So we do need to talk to to the fire department and see if there is going to be a greater restriction that we need to pass a resolution on. And if so, we will, I'm sure, happily pass a resolution on trying to be safe. So who's going to do that then? Shane, is that something Bonnie will do? Or?
I'll take care of it. Every year we have to pass a resolution dealing with this. And I think that date is coming up probably in May.
Okay.
So we'll be bringing something back soon to the city council.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Anything else, Bonnie? Hey, Shane.
Yeah.
Good to see you there. Nice hat. Like your hoodie.
Yeah, like I say, sorry for the casual attire, but I felt like I needed to be on here, and I couldn't make it work to be on the whole thing. So,
no, that's good.
Is it my turn?
Yes, your turn.
Okay, Austin, can you put that aerial photo up of the diversion that I sent you?
Yeah, 1 second, coming right up.
Okay, so this is something that Lehigh City and Lehigh Irrigation Company and Bull River, I think it's called Bull River Irrigation Company, has brought up with us here over the last probably since late last fall. So their diversion, Austin, if you can point at the left end of the yellow line. So they have a diversion down in there, and that it's, I mean, I'll bet it's 100 years old. It's a very old structure, been there for a long time. So now it's kind of surrounded by houses, and their company is very concerned about access, and you know, there's two different companies. They both go down in there every day, especially in the spring runoff when there's a lot of wood and different things coming down in the water. So they've kind of dealt with it, knowing that these people have a right to build these homes and things, but it's just not worked out great for them. And so they proposed to possibly rebuild this structure upstream, up where the red kind of L-shaped structure is there, and then pipe the water from there down to where it splits currently. And the reason we're involved in this is we own the property up where that red is. And so as I talked with them, there's actually some really beneficial things that we could gain from this in working with these irrigation companies on this. So early in the year, from like the 15th of April until July 1st, we don't take water up at what we call the Bear Claws up by the Dry Creek Trailhead. It's split down on the diversion that's down by Josh James's house. And so having it split there at that elevation, the only place that we can get water from there into our system is into our low zone. So that's the tank that sits there by the North Stake Center. So I talked to them, said, hey, I know you guys have some things to gain from this, but my recommendation to the city council will be that we work with you on the condition that we get to take some water up high so that we can benefit our other two upper zones earlier in the year from April 15th to July 1st, which would be huge for us. And so this is really just at the concept stage. There's a lot of things that would have to be done here as far as acquiring easements and working with the Division of Water Rights to change the point of diversion and different things. But they didn't want to go down that road until, they saw that they had our support. So I just, they sent me this last week. I told them I needed some kind of a just concept of it to illustrate what's being proposed here. So they sent this last week, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention and see if you had any strong feelings one way or the other on this item.
Okay, Carla, Any thoughts from you?
Yeah, no, I think if you can work it out so that we can take advantage of the water flowing through April 15th to July 1st to our upper two areas or zones. Yeah, I think that would be a mutually beneficial move.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
How will they get the pipe down to the southwest there? Or would they be running it under the existing creek?
That was something we thought about too when they asked to meet with us last fall. And I think that's what they would have to do, is run it under the creek, because at Pratt's, they have those vertical concrete retaining walls, and it's, that's I guess that's kind of the north side of the channel. So I think that it would have to be under the existing Dry Creek channel.
And the rights are just within the channel, right? Or do they have rights outside of the creek?
So Pratt actually owns the property from, and then the property owner to the north, I'm not sure of their name, from Ranch Circle, actually clear up through Dry Creek and up the hill to really the property line's the top of the hill. So they would have to obtain easements from those property owners that the pipe would run through.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, outside of that, it sounds like all goodness, right?
Yeah, and they're up for that challenge. I mean, that's what they do. So,
okay. Great.
Yeah. So I would say we at least have a majority of the council would be.
Okay. I think it's an awesome thing for the city. If we can get that worked out.
Yeah, that proposed diversion location, just make sure it is in a good location, that any future Bangerter property crossing or extension or anything like that, it's far enough out of that bridge area or that culvert area.
Yep.
To extend that master planned road.
Yeah. Well, and as that area potentially develops into more of a park, a little more developed, that can work.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Great. So late this week, it might be the weekend, I'll send you a copy of the tentative budget. And so that will be up for consideration at our next council meeting. So I would like to meet with, and it can be one-on-one or two of you and me, just to kind of go over it next week, if possible, or even Monday or Tuesday of the following week. I think that's the 10th and 11th. So I'll send an email out to that effect when I send the budget. But if we could work something out to meet and go through it, that'd be great. And there will still be work that will need to be done before we adopt the actual budget in June, but the framework will be there.
Okay.
So look for that. On the cemetery expansion, if you get a minute, drive up on 600 North or Pioneer up there. We got a price from a company to go in and clear the oak brush from basically the back of the new sidewalk to about 50 feet south of the east-west gravel road. If you've been there, there's the little monument, and then on the other side of the road, there's a small, maybe you could pull that up on the aerial, Austin. There's a small little group of grave sites there. I just know when we go to do this, that it's going to be very visible. There's some oak up there that's, it's probably 8 or 10 inch diameter oak. So clear to the north.
Clear down. Let's see. There you go.
Being slow to regenerate tonight. Yeah, so that east-west road, so the price we we've got, and I don't have the number right in front of me, but we'll bring it back to council, but 50 feet south of that line, and then going north to the sidewalk. That's what we're thinking would be our next phase for the cemetery expansion. So to do that, the first thing we need to do is go in and clear off all the vegetation. And I just want make sure we have the council support, because it will look very different once that is done. So maybe take a look at that next time you drive in that area.
Of course, we've got some of those cemetery plots right there.
Oh, yeah.
That's protected. Is it going to take those scrub oak around that area too then?
It would, yeah. And then we'll build around that, around those few existing grave sites there.
Okay.
Shane, are you talking about on Pioneer Road or along is it south of the path there?
So we built a new sidewalk on Pioneer on the south side of the road. Yep, right along there. From that sidewalk going south to a distance about 50 feet past the gravel road that runs east and west.
That's where you'd be clearing into.
Yep.
All the way down to here.
Yes.
Oh, so from the pathway, 50 feet in.
Yep, just like that. East property line to west property line. So there's a lot of grading that will have to be done in there to make this work. On the west end, we'd have to probably build a retaining wall. And then there's kind of a low area there. We would fill that in and start grading this and getting ready for the cemetery expansion.
Well, one mitigating factor, right, is if you still have those trees on the north along Pioneer, right, it kind of creates a shield for visually and for dust.
Yes.
Keeps kind of the same scent for both the cemetery and the neighborhood. So.
Yep.
Well, some of those are going to come out though, right? Between the road and the sidewalk.
I think the ones Greg's referring to are the ones that we planted in the 10-foot wide park strip up there.
Well,
Yeah.
What we're seeing in this older
Yes.
aerial though is this isn't a current aerial.
That's correct.
Those trees that we see between that path and the road right now will be coming out, is what I understood you to say.
Yep, it would be 100%, except maybe there's a large pine tree there by the monument. That one possibly could stay.
I see that
it's
one.
Like a spruce there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can, that would be a good one to keep. Depends on, it'd be good to look at the drawing. Is that entrance going to be the same entrance?
That's our plan, yes.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say you get going on it. We need to get the cemetery moving as quick as we can.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's
any other comments, Carla? You?
Nope.
Same. Greg? Okay. That's it then.
Besides the Lone Peak board meeting that was mentioned by Chief William in the morning, I will be participating by phone.
Okay.
So yeah, that's at 7:30.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Carla, do you have anything?
I don't.
Greg?
Two things. One, Trail Day had a great turnout, lots of good help and participation there. And but one challenge was there was lots of clipping and gathering, but then no one had a way to like haul anything away. And we don't really have a green site, so I don't know if there's a possibility for Trail Days to, and I think they may have left some piles along the road. I don't know what happened to those ultimately, but I don't know if we'd have a way to pick up some of those clippings from some of these community cleanup efforts.
Shane, what do you think we can get that picked up? Or
yeah, no We hadn't been made aware of that. What they had asked for, what the committee had asked for was a bin up kind of on the north end and a bin on the south end. And so we provided those. And I hadn't heard any different, but if there's bags up there, yeah, we'll have to address that.
Yeah, no, that's good. I don't think we knew, and maybe some people use the bins. I don't think we knew about them or used them, at least where I saw.
Okay.
So there were some large piles. They were all along the road, and I think some people threw some in the back of their trucks and stuff. But there were, several, I mean, large piles, not huge, but
Yeah. Okay.
road. Yeah.
All right. We'll
But
take
yeah,
a look
but
at that.
bins would be great too. I mean, we probably should have utilized those. I didn't know.
Anything else, Greg?
I wanted to check if we've heard any progress on the Westfield Road sidewalk at the east end, kind of along the Gilman property and the new home that's going in there. Is that?
Yeah. So the status of that, we have there's some retaining walls required there. We actually have a proposal from Wilding Engineering who did they actually did the design on Pioneer and 800 South. So we have a design proposal from them to work through the retaining walls and provide a design for the project so we'd be able to bid it. It's not a project that's in the current budget, and so I kind of anticipated that we would have that as a project in the next. But we could allocate some money and get going on the design right now so that when the new budget year hit, we'd, be able to get going on that quicker. I have approached the property owner. I can't think of his name, that bought the Ross Beck home.
Yeah, it's
And
Peter Evans, right?
Yep, that's him. I didn't talk to him. I talked to someone that works for him. He was out of town or something, and we're trying to schedule a meeting where we can go out because, I anticipate as that home gets completed that they're going to do a massive re-landscaping, and we want to be ahead of them.
Yeah.
And so they are aware of that. So part of that could come in this budget year, and we could work through that.
Does the city have property there for the sidewalk, or
We do.
Oh, okay. So we
feel like we have adequate right of way already there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. That's all I had.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Okay. Well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
We have Greg Gordon motion, Carla Merrill second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 There you go.
Okay.